So I had a chance to catch up with Doug Sleeter, one of my mentors in the accounting industry. Doug, thank you for swinging
good
by.
to see you, man.
How are you? I remember when I used to go to your conferences, and there was two things that you said that were like Dougisms.
Right.
One is agility trumps ability,
Yes.
which is again you describe it best. Can you give us that one? And I want to
Well, actually, I might test you. What do you think it is? It's better for me to hear
I think
how
that's
it's
good.
come across.
That's good. So to me, agility trumps ability is your ability to adapt to the changing situation, whether it's technological, environmental, political, the climate of the small business, your ability to adapt, to change, and to attach yourself to the trends and attach yourself to the client needs is more important than just getting hung up on the one thing that you do really, really, really good.
That you learned in school.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Perfectly good at it.
Absolutely.
And the idea that it may never change is just that's a broken idea.
Correct.
So you have it perfect.
And I think that's timeless, and I think that will always be true.
Yeah.
But there's another thing that you used to say a lot. We talked about, you talked about digital plumbing and chunkification, which that's your thing.
Yes.
So
yes,
can you
yes.
describe to us what chunkification is or was when you thought about it, and how that's changed now?
Right. So I would say going back to about 2000 when Intuit decided to open up QuickBooks by putting APIs in there. So there was the developer toolkit, that developers would come along and they would add chunks, which I call it.
Right.
Separating the various parts of the business process into different apps. And so you have a suite of apps and you'd buy them all in. And then the digital plumbing aspect is they would have to send data or receive data back and forth between the QuickBooks database and their database.
Right.
And now I think where we are now, 19 years later, is we're fully chunkified.
Right. There's an app for everything.
Pretty much.
And QuickBooks by itself can't do everything, and you have to add an app.
Right.
And you think that's an issue somehow?
Well, it's so I'll get to the issue, but so at the same time, QuickBooks keeps going on, and really all the major Xero or Sage products, they're always building more features in too.
Right.
And so these larger vendors are always struggling. Should we build it, or should we let developers build it? So where I really think we are now is the fully chunkified world has its own problems. And so while it was a trend and it's now fully there, I think the trend is now the opposite. It's a pendulum. It's switching back. And the reason that it makes sense to me that it would switch back is several reasons.
So customers want less chunkification.
Yeah, they want one throat to choke when something goes wrong.
They want to go back to one solution, one suite, right? Like G Suite.
Yes.
Right? One that does everything, and then they don't want that blaming or back and forth. Where, oh, no, it's the app. No, it's QuickBooks. No, it's the app. It's QuickBooks.
Right. And what's happening is those little developers with this great innovation and their one little lane they're swimming for their vertical, those developers are taking all the support burden from the big companies. So because if I have an app, a little app, and I know their support's really good, then I'm going to call them. Well, it may be that my problem is with one of the other products in the suite, but since they're so good, they help me with all of it.
Wow.
So it's uneven distribution of the support costs down to the littlest, most responsive player, which that's broken. If it's a QuickBooks problem, I should call Intuit. If it's an app problem, I should call that app developer. But I don't, as a customer, know. So I'm just calling because it doesn't work.
Right.
So I want one throat to choke.
But isn't that what the beauty of American Express? Like you have any credit card out there, and you go and you have a charge that you don't recognize. You call the credit card company and they tell you, well, you have to call them first, make sure they reverse it. Amex says, we got it.
Yeah.
Isn't that the beauty of it?
Kind of, yeah. It's the same idea, I think, but yeah. So on the one hand, it's the customer wants one throat to choke. They want one bill to pay. They want one support department. But now let's switch it all the way around to the vendor side. The big vendors, they don't make any money when an app gets sold. Yet they have to maintain the APIs. And so there's all this cost at the Intuits and Sages and Xeros level of supporting an ecosystem that doesn't make them any additional money. And at the same time, maybe it'll be the case, and in some cases it is true, the vendors, the apps are making more per customer than the others. So
yeah, that's true. So what you're saying is, for example, somebody will pay $50 a month for QuickBooks, and then some app that specializes on, let's say, boat management.
Right.
Those guys can charge $500, $1,000 $10,000
Right.
easily because there's just not that many customers.
Right. Or let's say CRM would have 20 seats.
And Salesforce is a great example.
Yeah. They would sell 20 seats in the organization for CRM, but one for the accounting partner too. So it doesn't make sense. This is not sustainable is my whole point.
Yeah.
And there's other ways you can phrase this up. But so now the question is, where are we going? I think where it goes is the big vendors are starting, we're already seeing it. HubDoc got purchased. T-Sheets got purchased. Auto Entry got purchased, right. And so we're already seeing what the big vendors are saying. We either build or buy, and sometimes they're buying them in.
Right.
And they're buying them when there's good customer base acquisition type thing.
Sure.
Or just a feature they needed or whatever. Or they're building because they know they've kind of learned on what apps in the ecosystem are successful. So, and they have more development resources, marketing resources. Right. So it makes sense. It's a build versus buy for the big guys. So where it ends up, I think, is the big guys are going to build out their suites because they just can and feel they have to.
Right.
And the little guys are either going to get merged together into bigger suites, or will die along the path. This is capitalism. It's the good and bad of capitalism.
Sure,
you know, you go out, you get an innovative little guy in the garage, and some make it and some don't, and that's the downside when they don't make it. But without those guys, those little tiny developers in the ecosystem,
they're small, nimble, they can move quick, they can be more agile, right? Because they're the ones that kind of like, because any of these technologies, T-Sheets, Auto Entry, HubDoc, in theory, Intuit can build it, and all these, in theory, they can build it. They got the resources, they got the manpower, but there's a reason why they don't, and I'm not sure if
they didn't anyway.
Well, they partially did or whatever.
Right.
But what's the reason for that? Because I know you do a lot of strategic advisory for technology companies getting into this space, and I'm sure many conversations are about, should we build this or should we not build this? Or should we invest in this or not? Or if we get into this and all of a sudden QuickBooks is going to do it, we have to compete against them. What kind of advice you give them in terms of making a decision on whether to build an application that could be bought or it could be developed by the big vendors and basically be made obsolete?
Essentially, that's the conversation we have with the smaller guys. And those are my favorites because it can really help them think through their strategic direction. But that's the conversation. Are we building something that either, do you think we can sell it to a big guy? Do you think we can sell it to other small guys to make a roll up, if you will? Or do you think we can go public with this thing? So there's different paths that each one of these great ideas have. And
but is there a consternation between the idealist entrepreneur that wants to create an app to make a difference versus the entrepreneur that wants to create an app to sell it, right? I mean, do you think that attitude will affect their culture or how the clients see them?
That's exactly where I try to get into the mind of that entrepreneur, ownership of like, what are you here for? Is this your whole reason to live? If you're in all in for your foreseeable future, okay, but if you're really doing this for a flip it kind of business, not many people I've run across trying to flip technology companies. But I do ask, where do you really think your biggest strength is? Is it getting something, hitting a single now so you can hit a home run later? I think that's a good way for all of us to think in life. Like I sold my business. It wasn't for sale, but I sold it 4 years ago. It was a double. Maybe it wasn't a home run. It was just good. It was good for me, right? But now I can go off and do other things that I'm arguably better at than what I was doing running my own business. So I think everyone wants, that's agility right there.
Absolutely.
Hey, if there's another opportunity and it matches your desires, and then take that.
That's right. Now, me as a practitioner, Doug, I went to your conference 7 years ago, whatever it was when I first started. I was obsessed with technology. I was obsessed with getting the technology right, becoming an expert at it, showcasing to the world that I am an expert in technology. That was my obsession. And now, 10 years later, I'm a bit older, a little wiser. What I'm thinking about is strategy and innovation, and mostly innovation in my mind, right? Not just technology innovation. But so in terms of strategy and innovation, I'm sure you're thinking about these things too. When it comes to like the small practitioner, my peers that may be watching this video, what kind of advice are you giving them when it comes to strategy and innovation?
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer that a couple ways because I'm on the board of a local college here, a board advisory board for their curriculum at the college. What do you teach students, and what do they need to know in order to go out and get hired? It's an analogous question to what you just asked. Like, how much technology and how much know-how do we need to consume, if you will, become, versus being just simply agile and move on to the next thing.
Correct.
I think the world needs both, and I think in order to move on to the next thing, you have to really know what you just did.
Correct, of course.
And you're really good at this. What you're really good at that your audience should already appreciate, but you're really good at articulating in a simplistic way what they really need to understand. Very complicated things. When you go down the path of how to do spreadsheet imports of this and columns to that, and then import and export stuff from databases and stuff, it's pretty easy. Explain it well.
But that's a marketing strategy. I think curation and summarization is the way you build audience, right? Because the world is moving really, really fast. There's way too much information, and people are sort of no longer trusting brands to give them accurate information. They're trusting the individuals that have mastered the art of curation. So that's my personal brand as well. But to the individual practitioner that maybe they're looking for information that is not in my channel or is not being curated, how do they think strategically moving forward? Do they think about getting good at a bunch of apps? Should they look at an app that's an all-in-one? I mean, like, how does this affect the practitioner?
Well, that's each person is. That's a rhetorical. I'm going to leave that as a rhetorical. Because I think what you just articulated is the different personality types, if you will, as well as business requirements at each client level. So I think what we have to do is get our level of knowledge up to like what you're doing, and then make assessments based on what we know.
Sure. And what's new in the Doug Sleeter world? What are you working on? And maybe what are you reading? Are you excited about any books that you read lately?
Well,
I always like your recommendations.
Thank you. Well, last year we talked about a book I'm going to re-recommend called Life After Google.
Life After Google.
It's George Gilder, and you read it, and I really like it because what it does is it pops up above the fray, if you will, and looks at what's wrong with the internet today. Why is the internet broken? And it is so broken, but nobody really notices. And talks about the blockchain economy and the whole digital currency things. That's part of the whole point. But this bigger point, security was bolted on to the internet, and it's not possible to bolt on security. You need to start with security. Anyway, so great book because it goes into that. So another book was Ed Kless, our good friend, recommended this thing to us. And Ron Baker's got good one. But go on Goodreads and friend up Ed Kless. He's just, what I like about him is everything he reads is almost really what I'm trying to learn too. But he recommended this book called The Case Against Reality. Did you hear about this yet?
I heard him talking about it, but I haven't read it yet.
Okay, so it's this goofy thing. Sometimes I like to just really be agile and expand my. But the idea is that everything we see is not real. In fact, it's not true. It hides the truth from us. So if I see this table, it's actually a bunch of molecules. I don't see the molecules. My eyes just say it's a table.
Sure.
And you and I agree that it's a table. Anyway, it just goes on. And you like have to really think a bit about what is this guy really serving up to me? Do I really embrace what he's saying? And what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? What because I mean that sounds like a philosophy guy.
It is, and that's sort of where I'm going to a lot of times is philosophy now, just because this whole Life 2.0 for me is about discovering more about who I am. And some of these books help me think about how my brain is wired. So
well, I can relate to that. I have a condition called tinnitus. I don't know if you've heard of it. Where your ears ring, but I can hear it, nobody else can hear it. And I've been thinking a lot. I mean, obviously since that situation has happened to me, we're thinking a lot about there's objective reality and subjective reality.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yes.
So my subjective reality is I hear things you can't hear. But so it's how I interpret it. So I think that a lot of realities per se happens in people's minds, and it's also affected by the way it's framed, the way you understand it, the way your upbringing is. So a lot of times the truth is not really a word that has value unto itself. Your truth and my truth are completely different.
And it ties into kind of what's going on in the larger environment, social environment we're in, where fake news or whatever is going on. What's true? I don't even know anymore. In fact, when I go to the internet to find out the truth of something, how do I know that what is serving up to me?
And who's the source of it? And what's the agenda behind it?
And even the source is sourced. What's the source of that? When you think about it, we're all just passing on each other's ideas. Very, very, very few people in the world today are doing really original thinking and research, or discovery, if you will, of things that were nobody ever knew before. So anyway, that's just kind of fun for me. And
so last words here. You're here at QuickBooks Connect. What impressions you have?
It was a good show. I liked going into the keynotes. There's a few famous people on stage, which was compelling. A woman that does Rent the Runway. I thought her story was compelling.
Interesting.
Uberize your closet. Anyway, go.
And let's talk about that. I know you have to go, but what do you think about Uberizing the accounting industry? I mean, that's something I've been thinking about. It. I know Uberizing means turning a service into an app that's frictionless. Right. So what?
And on demand.
And transparent, and the information it's available in real time. What would the Uberization of the accounting industry look like? And do you even foresee that happening?
So Ron Baker's really working on this problem and thinking deeply about it, and he and I talk occasionally. I think I leave it to him to kind of lead that charge, and you too. I know you're working on that a lot too.
I'm thinking about it.
I don't want to dodge the question, because I'm watching and think, but I don't think it's my role anymore to tell accountants where to go and what to do. I tried to do a bit of that, and hopefully they got value from that. But things are changing so fast that whatever we say today is going to be different tomorrow anyway. So I just go back to my agility trumps ability. Watch that.
I agree.
Like what you said, it's like I realized that's what I want to do. Sometimes you just realize, hey, that's me. So chase what's you. That's really what I recommend.
Doug, thank you very much. A pleasure as always. Maybe I'll see you next year. We'll do another one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.